Today is the third week of October, and I'm standing in Jalan Dewi Sri for an update again, reaching the end of peak season. So as we look around here in Seminyak, traffic is still moving, that part is good, but there's been some recent developments that are worthwhile to take into account. Since this peak season, there's been more flights coming in than previous years, but there have been certain days that have underperformed compared to 2024, and in fact, as far back as 2023. Also some updates on graphs and charts that you'll see here on our data showing who were the winners and losing areas during this peak season. Which neighborhoods got the most bookings and which neighborhoods did not. Peak season is over. We're looking at about another 2 months of low season before Christmas and New Year start picking up again in Bali. Well, welcome to another episode of the Bali Business Review. While we take a look at what happened this peak season. Peak season in Bali normally lasts sometime between June all the way to sometimes the end of September. But being now it's the third week of October and business is light, as you can see here on the beach in Seminyak. There's a lot of empty space here, a lot of empty space over here, and a lot of empty space over here too. While sunset being one of the most busy times of the day and Seminyak being one of the most busy places in Bali, it is a pretty good proxy indicator that times are slowing down a little bit. But what's the learning from this past peak season? Who are the winners and who are those who could have done better? 5 key learnings from peak season that savvy investors have learned, and that those who are still learning how to invest properly in Bali should not miss out on. Otherwise, you will, come to regret it the next time there's a peak season. The main questions we'll explore in this episode are how to get the most potential benefit during peak season by understanding strategy, by understanding dynamic pricing, by understanding what is the actual product that you as a vacation rental owner are selling, and taking some learnings from the traditional hospitality industry, that means the hotel industry, but avoiding some of the pitfall thinking that still plagues Bali to this day because of, let's say, outdated traditions that have carried over from hotel thinking now into smaller business thinking. So if you want to do well here now in the age of AI, the age of the digital redistribution, then don't miss out on this episode of the Bali Business Review, where I'll go over some of our best learnings that we've discovered here through the analysis of Buka Vista and present it here freely on the Bali Business Review in efforts to create a more sustainable Bali where there's less regret in investing here. So my name is Jing and I'm the host for the Bali Business Review. Please stick around and watch the whole thing. Following up from a previous episode here in Seminyak, we're back on the promenade again, and as you can see to the right and to the left of me, it's a little bit empty today, yeah, and it is a Thursday afternoon here in third week of October here in Seminyak, and let's take a look at it from above and see what we can see from the sky as well. Now, once again, this area and the promenade is a pretty good proxy indicator to overall economic activity here in Seminyak, based on the theory that the promenade has created an opportunity for businesses to keep tourists on the beach throughout the day. So any person who arrives to the beach these days will probably find something to do for breakfast, lunch, dinner, even sunset, of course, along the beach, whereas before we would expect people to kind of move more inland. But peak season will occur differently due to changes in airport arrivals and departures, which is exemplified by this graph. You can see that not every day of peak season perform equally to previous years or even the previous 2 years. As you can see, there are some days in which arrivals have exceeded 2024, and there are some days when the overall performance of overall arrival traffic to Bali has actually been under 2023. There is generally a few different seasons in Bali throughout the year. There is a peak season that hovers sometime between June and September, followed by the lowest season coming in October and November, followed by usually another peak sometime around December, January for New Year's, followed by another drop again after the New Year's up until about February is when it starts turning back around again and starts ramping up into a shoulder season around March to May, and then we get back up to the next year's peak season. So I'll show you 5 takeaways that we've learned this peak season from different expectations that different investors have had, and what are some of the more successful investors thinking and understanding in terms of their approach towards maximizing investment on property rentals for this year. Can you tell me what season it is now?
Yeah, now it's middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your name?
My name is John.
John.
Yeah.
John, where are you from?
I'm from Sumatra.
You're from, orang Medan.
Yeah, orang Medan.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, that's why you're a businessman. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you do here on the beach?
We got the business here. It's a surf store.
Surf? Okay, so
yeah.
you have all the surf racks over here. Wow. Okay, that's a lot of surfboards.
Yeah.
Okay. How long have you had this business on the beach?
About 6 years.
6 years.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's good. So you've seen a lot of seasons come and go then, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's fantastic. So right now is not too low, not too
low.
high,
Yeah.
middle, yeah?
Middle.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right, cool. Thank you, John, from Medan.
Welcome.
Okay.
Yes.
Wish you the best. Just recently, there's been some extensive construction here in Bali, if you haven't noticed. But I don't mean construction for villas. I mean public construction, the type that you always want the government to do. Take a look. This is in Krobokan, and these sidewalks are getting all repaired. And this is happening all over Bali. Major construction projects are happening to improve road systems and also uplift the underlying drainage channels, I suppose, to prevent future flooding from happening again. I guess the government is doing its job. So you see, it's not all the time that the government is bad. Sometimes the government does actually do what it's supposed to do. All right, I'm back over at one of my favorite spots for lunch, and we're gonna go and do a quick analysis on what happened this peak season. Yeah. So Ume is doing pretty good today. Let's take a look at the parking lot. There seems to be quite a lot of people coming in here, and that's always a good sign to indicate that perhaps people are planning to do more business in Bali. So once again, still my hypothesis that this is the central business district of Bali. So we'll go and see how it goes inside. Pretty busy today. Now, another critical insight that is lesser known is the adverse effects of construction upon the overall property rental market in Bali. So, as you can see, these red dots on this diagram represent negative reviews that have been scattered all throughout the South Kuta region, and of course Canggu and Purwanan and other areas as well. The leading cause, if you really dig down and read more about where these isolated red reviews happen, it's because of construction. And so much construction is actually happening in Bali at present. It's everywhere. It's happening in rice paddies, it's happening on cliffs, and it's affecting the overall enjoyment in which guests can actually have peace in their properties. Some people like to sleep in on a holiday, and it is it's a rude awakening to have to be woken up by hammers and hammering. In fact, it's happening in my own house right now. So one of the most common complaints that you see all across the board on the holiday rental markets is that the construction is a real inhibitor to 5-star reviews. In fact, construction sites can almost be identified from red spots all along these heat maps over here. You can see the red spots all across the Canggu area, Bukit area. These generally correspond to where there are construction sites. Now, there are fewer of these in Ubud, and my hypothesis for why that is that, once again, Ubud has a much more strong hospitality culture. The coordination between the developer and the contractor and the neighbors is far stronger in order to maintain social harmony. And so in this cases, the contractors often start a little bit later and a little bit earlier, and then they give a bit more respect to their corresponding communities. And the reason is simply this: there's been many construction mistakes in either the aesthetic, the design, or the structure that have repeatedly caused more than enough operational losses. And I'll give you a few examples. Waterproofing is one of the rarely understood but often most tested phenomena in civil engineering. Because of poor waterproofing, water will seep in through the porous concrete and start bubbling away all that smooth white Mediterranean paint finished on the inside of the property. If that is not scraped off and dealt with quickly, mold will follow, and with mold there will be more negative consequences and guest complaints about unsanitary and filthy conditions. So this is something definitely that we have seen in terms of its adverse effect on generating multiple negative reviews across different categories of properties, which is a poor attention to waterproofing. The second leading cause of operational loss this peak season has been the misdesign of cooling elements. So what do I mean by that? Many of these white Mediterranean villas have been built in a way such that they trap heat. They are actually acting as greenhouses most of the day. So the design does not allow the hot air, which rises up to the top of the building throughout the day, to ever escape. Basically, the hot air just keeps on accumulating. Here's a few simple tips that can prevent that. Number one, allow for hot air to escape through vents near the ceiling. This is a must check if you are accepting delivery of a property in 2025. If you don't, then be prepared to pay up to 5, 10, 15 million rupiah in air conditioning bills, which is not uncommon. The other reason why air conditioning gets so expensive is because the placement of the height of the air conditioner. Air conditioners have thermostats on them that allow for the temperature to be regulated after a certain temperature has been achieved. Because so many air conditioners are placed so high above the actual level in which they need to be placed, it basically means that the thermostat will never reach the correct temperature and your air conditioner will run on full tilt the whole time. Another critical insight that I have at this point is that the white Mediterranean design does not help at all. We are seeing some of the lowest prices as this design has become very, very stale over time. If you do have a upcoming project that uses the white Mediterranean design, the best advice I can give at the moment is to really try to incorporate a green roof or some other particular feature to make it look as less like this aesthetic as possible. If you search anytime on Airbnb or any of these travel booking platforms, you'll see such an abundance of this type of design, and you'll also see that because it looks the same, it feels the same, and because it feels the same, it competes with each other. And so I would not advise any more contractors or investors to continue on building according to this very, very 2020 look. The final insight are emerging markets and demographics. So needless to say, Gen Z is beginning to become a very important and also vital marketplace that we're seeing higher and higher numbers of Gen Z. For those of you who are indifferent to, let's say, the currently low prices that Gen Z travelers are paying for their accommodations, be wise, because one day, and it's in the 5 to 10 year category, these users will become your luxury buyers. They will evolve to higher and higher spends, but by that time, if you don't have a strategy to capture the amount of money that they're spending, then, well, you would have been too late to capture that particular fit of demographic. All smart marketers know you need to invest in the next generation as well as the previous generation, as well as the current generation, in order to capture the longest customer lifetime value, which is pretty critical and key. Now, in addition to the Gen Z travelers, we're also seeing an emergence of Indian and Indian diaspora travelers. So Indian diaspora mean ethnic Indians that are in middle class to high middle class income jobs in South Africa, in Italy, in the United States, in Europe, all over the world. So this group has different travel preferences, different types of dietary restrictions and types of behavior in their ways of travel, and it is going to be increasingly growing demographic. We would advise that you take a look at that too. Okay, it's been a pretty long day here at Jalan Dewi Sri. Let's go home right now. I'll bring you to my office. Come closer, come closer. This is a very special episode of the Bali Business Review where we will have a Halloween special. On this specific episode, we are not going to talk about dreams. We will talk about nightmares. We'll talk about the worst, horrible business failures that have ever occurred in Bali. In this land of spirits and demons and those that have magical black magic powers, practitioners of sorcery, sometimes called developers, unscrupulous developers that will seduce you with beautiful ads and sales promotion girls and YouTube videos that are designed to extract money out of your pocket and put it into their pockets. Promises of return on investment that are completely built on magical fairy tales and essences of hocus pocus, witch brews and crafts, goblin stories of those who are infamous demented characters that have stolen vast fortunes from those who are unwise enough to actually complete learning about history and not fall into tar pits where your money just vanishes. Listen closely, otherwise you might be the next to repeat these pitfalls and be condemned to eternal damnation in the island of paradise.